Barry, check this out.
Oh wow, what is it?
This time's question is... I know many people are against it, but I really believe that these records can have certain benefits. So yeah, can be good.
Well, I'm really worried about it. I use the internet and social media all the time. So I'm worried some big company is using my information and I don't want them to.
Shooters! I think it's for my own good in terms of that it can collect big data and improvise services for every people. And I think it can be good for the environment and human development as well.
내 팔에 뭔가 이상한 거 있는 것 같은데?
아니 이런.
아니 진짜 뭔가 이상한 것 같은데? 이거 좀... 아이 슈터지네!
You 외부 뉴스 레코드즈. Is it for your good or not?
I don't like people getting in my business. I don't like people compiling big data about me. So no.
I say it's good because I wish the internet, like such as YouTube or Facebook, could recommend me better recommendations so that I don't have to search for more.
Oh, shooters ask. I don't think it's for my good. I think it's intrusive and it's a little scary what type of use they will have for my web use data. So I don't think it's for my own good, so no.
Thank you for joining us. It's Shooters, and Shooters, I'd like to welcome you to the show. It's great to see you again.
Well, it's nice to see everybody.
Thank you.
Well, today we're talking about a familiar topic, the internet. We all spend a lot of time on the internet, and the records of what we do, spending all that time on the internet, is increasingly being used as data. Sometimes it's marketing data by companies, maybe even insurance firms and even hospitals, sometimes without us even knowing it. How do you feel about big data? Do you think it benefits us more, or does it raise some concerns? So this week, Shooters asks, your web use records, is it for your good or not?
Honestly, this is the hardest topic that we ever had, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm for it because it determines the roots causing of failures, issues, and detects in near real time, potentially saving billions of dollars annually. And just by noticing UPS is using big data frequently, and they're not strangers to big data. They're keeping all the records to see which items has to be packaged the earliest, or which ones are very urgent. And I believe big data are very necessary to big companies.
Okay.
But before going to very deeper in this topic, I think that when I discuss this with my friends, I'm one of those really foolish people that always click on the agree on any kind of website that I become a member of without even reading. And then after thinking about this topic, I realized that how much of my personal information is out there because I always just click agree.
Well, to be fair, I mean, for a lot of Korean sites, I think you have to click on the I agree to the company using my information for certain purposes, or else you can't proceed anymore, especially with shopping sites.
That's like
right? And insurance, yes, they're in tiny font, and they're very long and complicated. And basically, it's much easier to just agree to all, right?
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm often shocked on the Korean site. Sometimes they ask for address and phone number. Like I'm usually really hesitant even just to give out my email because I just don't want the junk, and I also don't like being profiled. I don't like big data. I don't like people having.
You're like
you guys probably know that.
CCTV cameras.
That's my stance on it. I don't like it. I don't see any benefit to me. And yeah, I've been really shocked living here at the types of things. Like I wouldn't give my phone number to a company, right? And I think it's really invasive, and doesn't benefit me. Only benefits
I think
big companies.
You do have to look at it like you're right. Like it's two different groups, like the individual and the companies. And I think both have different, incentives to say yes to it. But they're very strict cons. Like for me, as an individual, though, I'm also like a little scared of how my data is going to be used. Like I remember when the internet was first split up, I would always use fake data to sign up for emails because I was always so suspicious about it.
Trust issues there, huh?
I know,
They're watching this.
I know, but isn't that also like the biggest lie? Because I don't want to commit because like always like I have read and agreed to the terms of
Right.
agreement because it's the end user licensing agreement and like I didn't really agree to that, so I don't want to put my name. It's like yeah, I did. Like so, I think that's the biggest lie.
Okay, but
so.
we all spend a lot of time on the internet, right? And how many of you use Facebook? It's the
Everyone.
biggest
We all
social
do,
media
I
site,
guess.
right? We
Yeah.
all use Facebook. But let me tell you one thing about Facebook. You all know the like feature, right? And everyone uses that. Sometimes we wish there was a dislike button, but that's another show. So the like feature caused controversy because it came to light that it's been used without user permission to track pages that you've visited. So whether you liked it or not. And so it's been linked to 13 million web pages connected to Facebook. So your use or your activities on Facebook led to these connections to 13 million pages on the internet. Of course, leading to data that can be very valuable to many companies and also marketing firms as well. A, so were you aware of this feature? And B, does it bother you that it's being used so
I discovered that after agreeing to that, the new agreement that Facebook had, because I was looking for hotels in a place that I was going for vacation, and then I entered my Facebook, and all the ads were related to that
Right.
exactly same area, and I was like, how does Facebook know? And then I started to ask myself, what do I agree on? Like they're watching everything I'm doing on my computer, and also my friends that work for travel agencies told me to always clean my cookies, and I was like, what are you talking about cookies? Because even the flight ticket price changes because they can track that you've been on that site, and they keep on doing like heightening the price. So if you clean your cookies, you can get the actual price of a flight ticket too.
That's sneaky.
Oh,
Yeah,
I never- I
but
never
you know
heard
what?
that one.
I actually
Clean
did.
your cookies.
Yeah, no, but what was when I was doing the research, I actually found out that even clearing cookies doesn't necessarily delete your information because there's apparently it's very technical how to completely delete it, and it's very much retrievable. So sometimes you don't even know. It's like you can say, "Do you accept the cookies?" and you say no, and they can still track you. And that's like the really scary thing is that if you're not technically savvy as to how you go about everything, you're just like just a regular user. You won't even know about this thing, right?
Actually, it's not about only the cookies anymore, because right now everyone is aware that there is cookies that could be used to track you. So companies like not just Facebook, Facebook, Google, or even Microsoft, as long as you are logging one of the accounts, your personal accounts, you can be tracked.
can
So it's
track.
not it's not the cookies anymore, and it's not just Facebook that is tracking its
Right.
users. It's mainly all internet companies.
So does it freak you out at all? Do you feel like your invasion is being sort of violated, or do you find, it's okay, they'll provide sort of more customized ads? I'm
Freaks me
happy
out.
with that. It freaks you out.
I mean, you guys all know that.
I
But
kind of knew what you would say.
Yeah.
What about you, Barry? What do you think?
Well, I think that's the scariest thing, is because I think I'm a complete hypocrite when it comes to this issue. Because on the one hand, as some of you know, I'm obsessed with social media, with Facebook and Twitter, and some of these other things. I use them for my private life, for my business, for my employment, and all sorts of areas. And I don't give a second thought to what's happening with cookies or tracking. But at the same time, as I'm sure you already know, my opinion is I'm very against this idea that you're being tracked all the time, or you're being followed all the time on the internet. But it's so insidious, I think, that I just don't even think about it. I don't even notice or remember clicking those agreement forms.
I think the default setting is
Yes.
you kind of agree to everything.
Yeah.
And so if you want to sort of sign off, or you want to
You have to.
disallow such tracking, you have to go in
Right.
after several clicks and then turn it off.
Many of you are talking so bad about it, but I see it as a comfort. For example, Facebook, here's an ad next to it. In the right section is all ads, right? But if something came up with food or something woman related, I'm not interested. But then if it comes to cars and designs and certain vacation hotspots, then
Luxury brand.
luxury brands, there you go. Thank you very much. But then I will be very interested. And I don't see any bad things about them helping me out. It's just so comfortable.
It's just
I
narrowing
don't have
down
to, I don't have to
what's
search
out there.
that by myself when Facebook is just offering me, hey, I know what you like.
Yeah.
Here's what it is.
Right.
Here's
So you
more.
find that very efficient and sort
Yeah,
of
I think it's alright.
tailored service.
Some
right?
convenience for it.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree with what Charles is
I'm
saying.
not gonna take it this time. You're agreeing with me.
Because basically the ads are gonna be there whether you like it or not, and better have someone that you're interested in than have something that's absolutely not related to you. And I guess by tracking your activities on internet, they can know what you like and what you don't like, and they will only offer you something that you're interested in. And I think this is something positive.
Okay, well, we posed a question to our online viewers for the past week, how they feel about the web use records. So let's take a look now at the results. So the results of the online poll is actually overwhelmingly in favor of yes, pretty overwhelming anyways.
Wow.
Almost 7-3. Yes is 66.7%. So 33.3 said no. Just want to read you two comments, both from different sides. One person, YYHHGoGo17, said, since we're living in a technologically developed world, it's inevitable that we are tracked. So it's okay to use web records to analyze social trends. However, the government needs to have certain policies to protect our information, our privacy. And another one, also from Korea, SHJO924, said, it's kind of worrisome that everything is being collected and turned into data. And while it might lead to technological advances, it also makes it easier to see people simply as data points and not individuals with rights and private lives.
That's interesting because where you are reading right now is data collected online for us to have an opinion.
Yes, yes. They willingly came in and also
That's
presented their
true.
opinions. So
That's
it's a little bit, I think, different in that
It's
big
active.
data is just mass collection, oftentimes without us really
Right.
knowing about it. So are you surprised at the results?
No.
I
7-3
I'm not.
almost, overwhelmingly in favor of yes. We don't mind using.
I think that's surprising.
I'm-
I would have
Surprising.
suspected
Okay.
that more
Yeah.
people would be concerned about what governments or what companies were doing with that information.
Maybe for Korea it's not very surprising because everyone here is worried about security on internet and everyone wants to be safe. Maybe this data collection give them the feeling that they are safer on internet.
I mean,
Maybe that's the
in
reason.
Korea, you even
It's
put down
ironic.
your social security number to register at certain
Yeah.
websites. But
And that's not true. That's not the case for most overseas sites. is
Yeah.
it?
It certainly
Yes.
isn't.
I mean,
Not
it gets
yeah.
very annoying coming from my friends that they have to write every single thing down, all their private information, but there was nothing bad coming back to them. Fly.
But I think when it comes to, for example, art, that sharing online could be kind of like dangerous because I know that I have like photographer
Copyrights.
friends
Yeah.
Yes.
who put their pictures in Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram
Yeah.
like that, and then sometimes, and then recently I read there was an exhibition in New
Yes.
York that this guy who is known for always stealing, he sold like Instagram pictures and sold them for 100,000, and he got away with it just because of this agreement that is on
Yes.
social media.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and also, I mean, for artists, they're also for free thinkers or people who think outside of what the government would want you to think.
Yeah.
If you're expressing your opinion publicly, I can understand it a little bit more. Like if you put something on Facebook or Twitter saying, I think this, I can get that you would, you might be held responsible, but it's at the point where governments and agencies are looking at your private messages or even notes that you would be taking to yourself, and it's just,
Well-
that's really frightening to me.
That's exactly what the Edward Snowden issue
Right.
revealed, right? So I mean, the agency in America, the
NSA.
NSA, they hadn't been looking at your public information you were sharing. They'd been monitoring private emails. So I think you're being tracked everywhere all the time to an extent
would
that
be
you
a
don't
safe bet.
know.
I mean, let's talk about the benefits
Yeah.
of such big data. I mean, Charles mentioned it before that it provides you efficient sort of access to the sites that you are interested in, especially for shopping as well, right? So we can talk about the benefits. I mean,
like
it's
that.
true, right? There's a ton of information out there. It's almost physically impossible to go through all of that information. So if big data is being used to sort of tailor some of the information that we might be interested in, doesn't that just save us a lot of time and effort?
It does save a lot of time and effort, I agree with you, because I use Facebook advertisement to represent my company. And I don't have to go individually, one by one, telling you we're having this event, we're having this party, and we're having, and what if you don't like it? I have to talk to individually, but the Facebook advertisement only pops up towards the people who are interested in something that I represent. And within 1 week, it went up from 10 likes to 1,556, and we were very proud of that number. And just by having that number as a record, we would show people like this amount of people likes what we're representing, what we're engaging, and just by having that number, it represented us as a big business. And I do think it's very necessary for Facebook to understand my point, how I want to approach to the audience that's very necessary for me. And I don't think it's very bad. I mean, we're only talking about personal issues, but for the big companies, it's very, very necessary for using big data.
Okay. Well, it seems clear, definitely, where Charles and maybe where Danny stand on this issue. I'm not sure about the others, so right now it's time to decide which stand you are going to take. Web use records, is it for your good or not? So whom among you say, yes, it's for our good, other than, okay, even Angie. And the other three, of course, are saying we have some concerns.
Why is everybody so depressed? Come on, let's fire this thing up. Yes, I'm going for it.
This is the same
I'm
as
depressed
CCTV
as well.
shooting.
Everybody's all like,
It's a CCTV
So time to
group
head
again.
into the armory and gear up, shooters. Come on.
Oh, same, yeah.
I know, it's
Yeah.
just a CCTV. Well, which...
For efficiency and to create better products for the consumers and for clients.
they're doing it legal, so I don't think there should be any worries.
Even the UN have acknowledged that big data is actually necessary.
The data is out there anyway, so why not make use of it?
If you're not doing anything illegal, why should you worry?
Big data is not just used in marketing. It's also used to help humanity go further and develop.
Chinese agents to maintain email accounts from Google Gmail services. So, and they also targeted the accounts of activists that are critical of China's human rights abuses.
Wow.
Hacking is one safety issue.
They make money by selling this big data, right? They make money by selling this to corporations and
You don't have an option to opt out of it.
how it's misused by governments politically and how it can be misused by corporations.
Right?
So shooters, are you ready to talk big data?
I believe we
We're
are.
ready to do
Very
it.
excited to see what you've prepared.
Let's do
Okay, from now on, you are going to be tracked by a gauge. You all begin at 100% convinced of your own side's argument, but every time the opposing team says something convincing, you will have to press on the minus button. And of course, you can press on the plus button if your own teammate says something convincing or even reasonable. Okay, only the audience and I will know where your gauges stand at the moment. And we are going to begin, as always, by giving the first go, really, to the yes team. Why do you believe that web use records are for our own good?
Well, it's what you actually do with that data that's very important. And hopefully vision is to organize. Organizations will be better to take data from any source, harness relevant data, and analyze it to find answers that enable cost reduction, time reductions, new product development, and optimized offerings. And for those of you who went to research big data before you actually knew about big data, you went on probably Google and probably also clicked on first two links because they're the most relevant information that you could find. So I believe those were also the data that were collected from Google.
Well, basically what we believe that big data can be used to improve our quality of life in general.
It's the old quality of life argument again, is it?
Yeah, because it is real. It is improving our quality of life so far. So.
All right, okay. So the beneficial uses, how it could improve our lives and also use a lot of, reduce the time and cost of finding that information as well, are the benefits. Now the no team, your argument?
A big part of the basis of our argument is that it really only benefits the big players. Now, I don't see how this really benefits me very much to have a few ads that are tailored to my likes. Well, okay, that's my benefit. I think that's a pretty small benefit given that companies and governments are getting very personal information about me, lots of it, collecting it, and then selling it to other major corporations or other governments. Not only would they be able to abuse that data or use it against me, but also they're benefiting and I'm not benefiting at all. So that basic equation doesn't work for me. I don't think that benefit is worth it.
Okay, do you want to add anything?
To address what you were saying, like, most of the people, you're right, they will just go to the first two links you find on Google. But you also have to look at the other side of things in that Google can also bury a lot of data, a lot of information. So like if I'm a small company, I'm not able to pay advertising fee for Google, then my company will be buried and I will not have, fair play in terms of attracting customers that I would have done if, I had money to pay Google.
You don't pay to get more search. It's your search engine optimization that does.
Yes, but you have to pay to get the proper SEO standards.
What's SEO standards?
So that's the optimization, search engine optimization
You don't need to pay for that. You can do it yourself.
Yes, but then you have to have technical knowledge. And then
And it's all
the
online.
big companies, for instance, that do pay, like for example, YouTube, the only people who are able to afford to pay and get bumped up, they do pay something. It's not just
No, that's not the story of every YouTuber
Well,
who got
yes, I
successful.
think
Or
I
like
have to
Facebook,
with,
or
with
some
Marge
other-
as well.
some-
It's not always money, or you have to be technically savvy to get many likes or
That's
many
true,
clicks,
but then
right?
that also means that you can get buried, in the annals of Google's and not be searched because people are just that's the first two.
Right. And even if you can do it on your own, it's going to be a lot easier for someone with money
Obviously.
to hire a team to
Right.
be able to do that. And I think also it's search engine optimization isn't the most troublesome thing. Like the more troublesome thing is governments collecting data and using that against you, or companies
In what way
tracking data.
against you? I want to hear some examples.
Well, an
What
example,
are they
one
doing to
example,
harm you?
one example in the States is Target, which is like a big, it's like a multi-store, like it's like an E-Mart type of thing, and they profile their customers' spending habits, age, the place where they live, like very heavily. So one young girl, she was a high schooler, she got pregnant in high school, and before her dad knew that she was pregnant, Target already knew that she was pregnant through their system, their customer profiling system. They started sending coupons to her home, and her father called Target and said, "Why do you keep sending me coupons about a newly pregnant person? Like this is messed up. You keep sending me this." And then later he found out his daughter said to him, "Well, actually I am pregnant." And this was a big problem for Target at the time because people were creeped out by it and no one wants that. And I thought that's a very real example of how companies
It is.
compile information about you, and even they're not trying to use it against her. They didn't know, but that just shows how problematic it is. When I hear that, it makes me totally
Of
uncomfortable
course,
with the whole
I
thing.
agree. That was a horrible experience for her. But the bigger picture is to make things better for the consumers.
And they did the opposite.
It was one happening.
So you should press the minus right now.
Yeah, but it was one and it happens with all new systems.
But
We live
that's
in a
not the
digital
we can-
era, and technology is going forward. And it's not only the bad companies or bad governance we're doing. Even the UN has a new program this year that is called the Big Data Development that they are using for human development, how to help improvise all kinds of sectors for people for their well-being.
Well, the way I see this is like you guys seem to have a limited understanding of how big data is being used right now. It's not just used for advertisements, as you mentioned earlier. It's also used in education, in many ways. And to talk about education exactly, in countries like Japan and South Korea, where technology is heavily used in schools, by collecting all this data of how the students are using their smartphones, how they are using their tablets, how they are interacting between them through internet in class. By collecting all this data, it can help ministries of education, governments, and schools to improve their programs to fit better the needs of the students. So this is one good way for using big data. It's not just about marketing.
I think it can be used at times in good ways, but I think that the negative potential is a lot larger. And when I hear that education example, I do see the positive sides, but also a big negative one I see is What if a kid from the age of 3rd grade is thinking a little different? What if a kid from the age of 3rd grade wants to live a different life than other people in this country do or than the government would want to promote? And then from a very early age, they can be profiled and sectioned into a certain group of people. And I think that's the type of thing, it's like a very Orwellian 1984 type of problem that we're talking about. And I get scared to think that people are profiled from the age of like 5 or 6. Like we're consumers who are making choices. Like from the age of 15, I can understand it more. But when you're getting even that far in, it's very insidious.
We're all talking about like some bad experiences that you've been researching, like Target. But does anybody have experience on their own? Like I want to ask you, because nothing happened bad to me.
Well, you don't necessarily realize
No,
because you're
yes.
caught within that system,
Yeah, but then
aren't you?
has it ever harmed you though?
Well, you
okay,
don't know. Well,
sorry.
hold on. So I'd like to echo what Danny just said about this sort of Orwellian idea. I think that novel was published in 1948, and I think that shows us exactly the direction that we're going in with these concepts that we're talking
You still didn't
about
answer my
today.
question. Has it harmed you personally?
Well, we don't know. It could be harming us all,
But did it
every
happen?
single
Did you
one of us
notice
right
that it
now.
But the
happened to you?
simple
Well,
yes
but
or no would be.
You don't know.
I don't know
okay?
because it hasn't
You don't
happened.
know.
Honestly,
but
it's giving me more recommendations on the things I like than the things that I want.
Right,
but
Honestly,
wait a
I wish
minute.
it could
That's
I wish
not
it could
a
give me more
neutral concept.
recommendations on things that I like and I want. And I even Google, like I could search something one or two things and it would just show up right
Right.
there. And even when I'm
Just
shopping,
thinking
if I'm
like
only
that.
looking for certain jeans and certain colors, it would just pop up right away. It's so comfortable.
But what you're talking about is an incredibly superficial understanding of the
Well,
world
what about
around
bank
you.
then? A bank
That
collects all your personal
that you
information
can-
and you write every single thing, even your security numbers and all. But then how could you ever trust them? You're even putting your own money in there. That's the data right there, dude.
Yeah, that's
How do you feel?
well,
I mean,
that,
but how do you know that they're not stealing your money? I mean, you feel so safe. You're putting your actual own money and personal information in
I
there.
don't
but-
feel safe with the banks having my
So you
information
keep everything in
either.
cash, right?
No, I don't. It's something that I have to do. But I'm saying it worries me. It worries me that I have to do it. And I think maybe a very good example for all of us here would be we all have visas, work visas that we're on, right? Maybe your visa isn't
hope
in
everybody
jeopardy
has work
now.
visas.
But imagine you know that governments are looking at pretty much they can view any information, anything that you're saying.
And if they're not willing to harm
What
you,
if-
why do you worry
But
then?
Well,
let
well,
Danny
but they
finish,
could.
and
What if something about you or one of your friends or someone that's close to you? What if a government?
Are you doing
thought-
anything illegal?
Well, what if you were one of your friends were?
Then that's their
Or
problem.
what
They're
if-
doing something illegal, not my
Well,
problem.
still.
Okay, so before we go into more detail, I mean, this is a very sort of hot issue, and it's something that we also pose to the people on the streets of Seoul. So let's take a look at the results of the street poll.
자신의 자취를 남기는 건데 그게 다른 용도로 활용된다면 싫을 것 같아요.
나의 패턴을 누군가가 알고 이걸 이용해서 마케팅을 활용한다든지 그런 게 좀 민감한 부분인 것 같아서.
근데 저 여행 다닐 때 호텔 이런 거 알아볼 때도 맨 처음에는 막 잘 안 나왔었는데 한두 군데 들어가 보니까 그 뒤로 잘 나오더라고요.
요새는 뭐 이름 하나만 있어도 개인정보가 다 나가는 거니까.
They know too much is kind of eerie, but if I'm shopping or something, then it'd be helpful to know if they know what my interests are.
방문 기록은 어떻게 보면 개인 사생활일 수도 있잖아요. 그런 거를 데이터로 사용한다는 거는 개인 사생활 침범이라고 생각해서
어떤 그런 사람들에 대한 취향이나 이런 거를 파악해가지고 그거에 대한 대응을 확실히 빠르게 할 수 있다는 거에 장점이 있지 않을까 싶네요.
So it seemed like the street poll was actually opposite of the online poll. More people seemed to be opposed to the collection of big data. And I don't know if those results surprised you, because you were obviously expecting maybe more yes, as in the online poll.
I do think because this is such a new big thing that we are scared of it because we are not really aware of what is actually going on behind all this collection of big data. But from what I've read, and even if the UN is making a big program just to use this big data to improve people's life, I'm not fearing it.
So like to address that, as well as the UN, one of the recent studies and arguments against big data is that big data tends to have so much noise in it that you don't really identify specific spikes or particular importance of like, what does this really mean? And another thing that's important, and I work in development, is that you always have to put it in context. I can't just, take one program that's effective here and assume that, okay, the numbers add up and this will go. Most of the time, it doesn't really work that way. Like, you have to change it, otherwise
But
it
wouldn't
doesn't
they do that
really
with the
effective.
results of any survey? Wouldn't they always put it into context and give you the,
yes, and
the
that's
background or the
but
circumstances?
but that's a tendency. If you have like big numbers and big data, you tend to just look at that portion of it. It's harder to look like what's behind it, to really analyze like.
Yeah.
And if there's so much noise, the tendency, the scientists are actually finding that might not really be relevant at all.
Sorry.
But Mary, don't you think that this is why it is important to collect big data and study it? Because basically it gives us information, not just general information, but really specific information about different regions in the world, different categories of population. So it's not really like you say, it gives us really details that we can use to improve every society or every country by itself, not just take one big plan and apply it to every single country.
Personal experience when it comes to customer base, whenever we buy it, they keep the data of how many products we're buying, and then when it comes to 5 products, then they will give 1 for free. And they would also study which mask or face creams that we would purchase at which season, and they would study which ingredients are necessary for that certain season and times, and that's used for helping the customers.
And aren't you satisfied what you're finding
I'm very
in the
satisfied.
store?
Right, can we address this consumer argument before we go any further? Because it really pains me to hear you making this argument about consumerism.
Very
okay?
pain.
Now it sounds like you're just saying that you're happy to be a good little consumer,
Yes.
right? You're
Yes.
doing what they're telling you to do. This idea of consumerism, it's not a neutral concept, okay? It's a political concept, right? And so it only benefits the companies. You buying more of the stuff that they tell you
benefits
to
us.
buy
Exactly.
only benefits them. Now, we also have this idea, and I think we've mentioned it several times throughout the course of the series of the show, okay? But so Noam Chomsky has this very compelling argument that the reason that so many people can be experts in something like football, okay? They can talk about football or a sport or something they like in great detail, but not about something that's important or could help their life, like social policy or housing policy or something like that, okay? Is because they've been put into that box. And what's happening, the way that big data is being used, okay, is just to further entrench that social stratification. So yes, it is bad for you and me and for everybody around you, because what that does is it makes the class system stronger, and it makes it harder for you to get out of the class that you're
for
in.
example, let's say, honestly, I have no idea how much money I'm spending monthly, but if I could go on a bank account and then if I could look at an application, dude, quiet, let me talk. Brother, hold on a second. Let me go down to the bank and see the information of how much money that I was spending.
He asked you a
monthly.
question, though. He asked you a question.
Yeah, but then like you didn't answer my question too. Has it ever harmed you personally? You didn't answer that my question.
I just want to interject here because I find that it's this whole argument about big data. We're not just talking about the marketing and the consumerism aspect of it, right? It's not another show about luxury brands. So we need to go beyond that. I think big data is used in so many different ways. Charles, I think, used that example because that's what he knows and that's what he's familiar with and that's how he benefits. He did ask you, and I thought was a valid question, how has it harmed you? If you're not able to come up with an answer and you say that it has harmed us in probably more ways than we know, then you also have to admit the opposite, that maybe it has benefited in ways that you do not know as well. So the personal experience, I think, is valid, and you have not addressed that.
I think we have addressed it.
So sorry. Personally, yes. So I would go shopping, right? And it's like, oh, let me shop. And like 5 items in, because things keep popping up, I can't stop. Like, it's so much harder. And I can imagine...
What do you mean you can't stop?
So you end
can't
up
stop
buying?
shopping. I end up buying more than when I should be... What
your
I
choice.
initially...
Control yourself.
Yeah, control yourself.
No, here's the thing though. But that's not necessary to for everyone. My personality, I have very... I'm very impulsive. And a lot of people tend to be impulsive. And, you have to consider people who are alcoholic, people who are trying to break off or trying to break off, from their regular patterns.
But can I ask you?
But then things pop up. Like these recommendations keep popping up.
But I have a question.
But it's insidious. Like I do Google searches, it still pops up. I do Facebook, it's still there. I do in YouTube, it's still there. I'm doing my work, it's still there.
Please don't forget that all what pops up on your browser is based on your research. So basically, you were researching it before.
It's history.
It's
Exactly.
history,
Let
exactly.
Nandi speak.
So if you can't really blame big data or tracking your history for what he did before, because if you are impulsive, it would happen even if you go shopping in
In
stores.
real life.
Okay, I'll give
Yes,
you
but
that.
I don't go
Okay.
I'll
to
give
the
you that
stores
point.
every day.
I give you that point. That makes sense. What I have a problem with is the system as a whole, and I would say this is a little bit more philosophical, but I would say it's harmed my psyche and everyone's psyche to become comfortable with the system where the organizations or the sites, the companies that are using this, they didn't ask us first. And I don't like that. This is a very new thing, right? Big data is a very new thing. Right now, the format is the companies just take it. And they kind of, through certain long terms of agreements that no one reads and no one has the ability to read half of these, it puts all of the power in their hands and not in ours. And I feel like anytime you have a research study, when we talk about studies, you always say, yes, I agree to this study. This may be used for these purposes. I agree to that. I'll fill out this survey. But all these websites, Google, YouTube, Facebook, most of these is very hidden. And the reason that they're trying to hide it is I think they know we wouldn't be as comfortable with it as we are if we really knew the details of what they're doing with our information. So that's the thing that I'm the most concerned about. And I think that is damaging to a psyche because the more this happens, the more that people worldwide are going to get more used to it. This conversation that we're having right now is going to become less and less common.
Mm-hmm.
Like Angelina, you said that it's a new thing.
How it harms you personally.
Well, I said in terms of our psyche.
But I have a question. You say that it's something that maybe we're becoming more used to, but is also the collection of big data a trend that perhaps is unavoidable now? As one of our comments said, as our world becomes more intertwined with the internet, we're spending more and more time on the internet, the collection of data seems inevitable. Do you think there's a way that we can be free of it then?
Impossible.
I think it should be. I think it gets to the thing that I brought up before. I think it needs to be flipped. I think that it needs to be that the consumer or the citizen of society should be asked first. I don't
every time you visit a new site or every time you click on a site, are you willing to go through the?
I don't think it should be like that for every site, but I think there needs to be a knowledge and there needs to be a much better setup than there is now, because I think a lot of it is very secretive the way that a lot of websites are set up, and I don't think people were having this conversation even 3 or 4 years ago. This has been very new. Even Facebook ads weren't around 3 or 4 years ago. YouTube ads weren't around maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So people are just learning what these are, and I think that that's part of the interesting thing. We were never asked if we're okay with them selling our information. Now these companies make their money by selling it. That's why it's free. You don't pay for YouTube or Facebook. You don't pay for Google. That's their business model. But shouldn't we know that what we're giving them is being used for them to use their business? Should we not have an option? Should we not? You don't know to what extent.
I want to stop you right there because I find that some of the opinion has shifted, and it might be a good time right now to just regroup your thoughts. Okay?
Good idea.
Shooters, let's head back into your armories and then come back.
Okay.
They have all this data that we have used and things that went wrong, they can make it better.
Data has always been collected, and it's only by collecting data that we can develop.
From big data being collected, there are many comforts being provided.
We have a freedom of choosing whether or not to use these services.
Obama campaign actually use it for his re-election.
Quantification in general is a very problematic way of analyzing data, especially people.
We didn't know, like the Facebook manipulation study, you didn't know until someone outed it.
Unless the question that you apply to the data is a good question, then whatever you're going to get out of the data is just rubbish.
Most citizens of the US were not happy or comfortable when they learned about the Snowden thing.
Yeah.
So you're back from the armories for a second time. You have a chance to regroup and also re-strategize. But before you actually go into your final arguments, I wanted to pick up on something that Danny said before we went into the armories, actually. You mentioned the major social media sites like Facebook and probably even YouTube and Google, all these free sites where all this big data, a lot of the big data, is being collected. I was just curious, in exchange for protecting your data, would you be willing to then maybe pay a fee?
Okay.
Because obviously they get their revenues from advertising and marketing, right?
That's a really good question. We were talking about that in the Armory, and I was saying, I think that is what I would prefer as a consumer. I would prefer that option to be told, hey, you could pay $10 a month to use this service that you use, or you can use it for free, but as you know, we use your data and sell it to other companies. But if you pay this money, then you can be assured that this will be protected. And because that option isn't there, I feel like it's a bad setup from the start. And I was saying in the Armory that probably there will be businesses that spring up like this, where whether it's cell phone providers, cell phone manufacturers, search engines, where there are people that want their data protected, and maybe that would be the type of business that would begin. But I would hope that already the majors would do that. Yeah.
To go back to what Danny was saying, I was just wondering why at the beginning of internet, paying email services, they didn't work well, because basically they were asking people to pay to have an email account, but then again they were losing users to email companies that were offering this service for free. So here you have a real example.
Well, yeah, and I think at that time, no one knew how the internet was going to work yet. Even until like 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of people were talking about, is it worth investing in a company like Instagram? Is it worth investing in a company like YouTube? They have all these subscribers, but how are we going to use them? People didn't know until recently how easily consumers would just say, sure, I'm cool with you guys using my data, which is kind of, it's been not much of a fight, but I think it should have been more of a fight. I've been surprised at how easily that's been done, but I think that kind of just proves that it's a mystery and this is still very much in progress. And this kind of conversation is the type of conversation I think is really important to have, because I think our data should at least be protected more. Obviously, it's out there. There's going to be no going back, but it should be defended. It should be private if you want it to be private. And again, it's not just companies, it's also governments, it's also banks. I think there's just so many places where this is used.
But let's be real. There is a big data revolution out there. It's been less than a decade, but there's so much information out there. Everything we do online, even it's not just the industrialized countries, it's the developing countries too, because they're using mobile phones. So that's why I'm going again with the UN program, because they realize we have all this information with people, so they use this program that they have, and the value of big data, which are the 3 V's. It's variety, volume, and velocity. And of this, just to help the well-being of the world population. And they are collaborating not just with governments or big companies, but like small local companies as well, with universities, to use this information for the good.
I like, and I gave you a point there.
Thanks.
I like that use of it. I like that interpretation of that. I know that is possible. But what I don't like about that is this council isn't doing anything to standardize and protect people and give them more privacy if they want it. I mean, I'm surprised. That's what I think. That's what I want to see governments enacting is,
I mean,
how are
look
we going
back
to
with
protect
what
our
has been
citizens?
done and make the work better and even find a better solution for it. And from big data being collected, it just brings comfort. It just saves time, and it's making even a better business choices. And reviewing how much money you have spent, from the data, from the bank that they provide for you, I think it's even better for you to even save money and gives you a better comfortability.
I was actually wondering whether it's even physically possible to regulate companies and how they make use of visitors' data, because at the rate of new sites and all the data coming up on the internet, I think even for just Facebook or for YouTube, there are millions of new pages.
I don't know,
in this UN
sites being created all the time.
Yeah, in this UN big data program, they estimated how many works could be created by actually taking care of this big data and analyze it and do something good with it. But I do want to mention also other areas and that we haven't discussed is like healthcare. Even in the US, they did a study that shows that if they use this big data of the patient, it could save them 300 billion in value. every year.
$300 million
Yeah.
in research and
And,
cost.
and using this big data of patient and medication and everything, it could reduce that much money a year.
So sorry, let me address that because my sector is in health.
Okay.
And one of the things though, that if you focus on the big data and if you focus on the big numbers, one of the more worrying things is that people are worrying about putting investment and money into just because so many people are like, oh, let's do obesity, blah blah blah, and then you actually forget the smaller number of population that no one's doing the research on that because all the big data is saying like, oh, you should focus on this. So that's one of the things that is worrying about it is if it redirects the attention of the government from just focusing on the numbers. And Barry was saying about the quantification.
So quantification is a huge problem when you try to apply it to real life problems, and there's been lots of cases where using big data and just the quantification process that goes with big data. Okay, so you have all the information and then you quantify it in some way, and that gives you your answer, and then you apply it to the real life circumstance. And there's been a lot of problems where they've actually done that. So in America there was a huge issue with the college rankings system. So applying big data to the college ranking systems caused problems in terms of students being rejected from universities or students not getting into universities. And again, it fed into this problem of sort of social stratification, okay, because they gave all their data and they tried to apply it to that system. And again, with crime and punishment as well in America, they've tried to apply big data to sentencing, to sort of criminal sentencing. And there have been a lot of cases where people have been given longer sentences than they should have been, or they've been given significantly lower sentences than they should have been given. And I think that highlights just a key problem with what big data is, okay? It doesn't have an informed judgment behind it.
Do you think we can actually see Minority Report coming to life anytime soon then, where they use kind of data to say, for example, Angie.
Yes.
There's a risk that Angie could commit a crime, and they try to prevent the crime before
Do
she
it.
actually
Yes.
goes ahead and
Do it.
Wouldn't it be good for society?
I think it is. I think it is.
Wouldn't it be good for society?
I think it is.
You're preventing me from committing a crime.
Oh, no, that's so
But you
scary.
never
'cause
know.
what if-
It takes out your will.
Right, and it
You
also
could change your decision.
I feel like we are battling with good examples and bad examples. And one good example that actually concerns me a lot coming from environmental science background is that big data can help that in so many ways, and it's already being in work within the UN as well. For example, like if you use GPS, you can diminish high intense traffic and people would know what other roads to take, and you can, with this big data, make factories more efficient and like make it's all for the better for the future. We do think that big data can improve a lot for the next generation in terms of well-being.
Right. I think we all agree that big data is a trend of the future, right? Yes.
Yes.
And I think maybe the issue, of course, whether it's good or bad, obviously will have to be regulated, more governments and more regulations. Whether they're very effective or not, that's another issue. But overall, generally, if it's a trend that we cannot avoid, and I think we've kind of come to this conclusion before, but is it something that can be tapped for good more than bad? Maybe that's the issue.
I think that's a good
do you
way. That's a
acknowledge?
good way to look at it. When I approached it, I wasn't thinking at all of the positive aspects. The only positive aspects, honestly, that I saw was better recommended music. So, I mean, and the example that you made, I think it's a good example. I see the potential for good, but because the main players involved are governments and major corporations, and the main people that aren't being told exactly how that information is being used is the normal man, the normal woman, us.
Yeah.
That's my main concern, and that's what I think needs to change. I don't think that we can avoid it, but I feel like it's a little bit of the Wild West, and we don't know what's going on. And I feel that there's definitely been times as a consumer, there's nothing I could do about it. I had to agree, and I have done that many times, but I just don't like the system. I wish that I had a chance to opt out.
How do you address that? I mean, that's a valid point, and I think it's one that the No team has been raising quite often. Oftentimes, data is collected without our knowledge. Sometimes you have to click yes on the I agree to the terms of use agreement in order to get some sort of service. And having no say in that, whether the end use is good or bad, that is an infringement of our rights in a way and in violation of our privacy, no?
I want to say that big data or information in general have been collected. It's not something new. It has been collected since long time ago. It's like all the development we see in the world today, development of countries, cities, your school, your own neighborhood is based on data, based on information that has been collected without your knowledge. So this is a fact, like you can't really deny it, because even when you go out to eat in a restaurant, for example, you will have like the restaurant owner taking information. Oh, this client ate this dish and he finished this dish and he didn't really like this dish. This is some kind of information that can be collected, and you don't really have a saying if you are gonna allow the restaurant owners to collect this kind of information or not. So yeah, it's not something new, and it's definitely something that is proving that it is can be used to improve our quality of life.
Okay, let's
Guys, I'm sorry to disturb or interrupt you, but we've hit bullseye. So we hit bullseye, but you may have guessed it was a tie. Neither the yes team nor the no team managed to win. And the
that's
majority.
probably appropriate, right?
Probably,
I mean, based on the discussion,
Yep.
that's probably appropriate. I mean, I really like what Angelina said, okay? And it'd be my hope that big data falls into the hands of people who genuinely have humanity's best interests at heart. So not the politicians, not the corporations, not the marketers. So exactly.
Let the good guys deal with
And
it.
even certain things you guys said, like it kind of does scare me when I got to know more, but then I still truly believe that some of the usage of the big data are beneficial in our personal lives. But
I mean, I think we all sort of benefited from
This
big
discussion.
data. I mean, and all this discussion, but also, as you mentioned, like even when it comes to shopping, I mean, it's a small example, but it benefits our lives. We don't have to go searching. Oh, what was that thing again? What was I interested in? So it's a small example, but I'm sure it's something that we
Don't shop
benefit
too
from
much.
without really
I think it makes sense
try.
that one thing that I think is good is just for people to have more of this conversation. Like this is a very new challenge, and I'm a person who finds it very scary. There's some people like that. Some people only see the good side, but obviously there's two sides to it. And I thought it was really interesting to hear what everyone thought about it today.
Well, we do have to come up with a statement, of course, that could sort of reflect all of our views. So, I mean, I think all agreed, maybe. I don't know if you think about the collection and the use of this data. Maybe there needs to
we
be.
We definitely need more transparency when it comes to the collection of data. Because the collection itself of this data or big data by itself is free and everyone can use it. So we want to know people who are using it, collecting it, how are they doing it and how they are using it. So this is a very important point.
I do want to see the results. Why do I never see the results?
Exactly, that's true.
Where are they?
What's their
I believe they do come out sometimes.
Yeah,
but
they show up in your recommendations.
No, I think there should be a bigger role. Like big data should be playing. Like you're right, and we need to be more aware about it.
And as it becomes more sophisticated, I imagine like the noise that you were talking about, the shortcomings of big data will also be supplemented as well. But as we mentioned, there's no clear-cut answer for this, but I think the best thing that we can do is to continue to have dialogue on this, to be more aware of it.
Definitely.
So for the final statement, would it be safe to say something like collectors of data need to be more transparent in the gathering and also the use of big data?
Yes.
That would be okay with
I'll
that?
agree to that.
Yep.
Everyone agree to that?
Yep. I'll sign off on that.
Yes.
Shooters, we will sign off on that, and hopefully we'll continue to take this dialogue beyond the show as well. And we'd like to thank you for joining us here on Shooters. Thank you so much, and thank you, Shooters, as well. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Last show,